So Sony just released the new ZV-E10, which they call a vlogging camera, but they already had the ZV-1, which they also call a vlogging camera. And in my opinion, these are very different cameras, so the question is, which one should you get? Let's talk about it. So this will be the third in my trilogy of ZV-E10 videos. I had really only planned on making one, but I got a lot of questions and comments in the last two videos, so I made a comparison between the ZV-E10 and the very similar A6400. I'll link that up here somewhere. But other people were asking the question, well, what is the difference between the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10? And there are many. So Sony calls them both vlogging cameras, but I think they should be called content creation cameras, and you can use them in very different ways to get excellent results. Don't let it fool you that they're saying this is an entry-level camera, because while the price points of both these cameras are entry-level, you can do very, very good things with either camera. You just have to choose the one that fits your needs best. Now, these cameras do have a lot of similarities, but I will highlight the differences between the two so that you can make a more informed decision. So the ZV-1 is a point-and-shoot style camera with a 1-inch sensor and a lens that is attached. The lens is 24 to 70 millimeters in full frame equivalents with a 1.8 aperture to a 2.8 aperture. But the thing is, we will talk about the aperture later in this video. It is not as simple as a 1.8 to 2.8. We'll talk about that. Now, the first advantage I see is the crop factor when it comes to the E-stabilization. The ZV-E10 has a very large crop. I think it's something like 40% when you turn on the E-stabilization, and the stabilization still doesn't seem that great. And as many YouTubers have pointed out, it has a rolling shutter problem. Very jello-like effect when you're moving around the ZV-E10. The ZV-1 has much less rolling shutter, is what the jello effect, and also with the stabilization, it only crops in 10%. So when it comes to straight stabilization in the camera, I think the ZV-1 does it better than the ZV-E10. Now, a big win for the ZV-1 is the built-in ND filters. Because they have that one lens that is attached, they were able to implement the built-in ND filters, and that is fantastic when it's a bright sunny day. You can keep your aperture as low as possible because the ND filters will kick in and you don't have to buy an external ND filter and screw it onto the outside. A lot less fooling around. This camera, it makes it convenient. It is smaller and much lighter. The actual weight of the ZV-1 is 294 grams, and they say the weight of the ZV-E10 is 343 grams, but that's without a lens. You're gonna need a lens if you wanna shoot on a camera, so the best you can do is maybe get one of those pancake lenses from Sony, and that's still gonna be 60 grams or so. So what the best you can do on the ZV-E10 is at least 400 grams. And if you put bigger lenses on, it gets much, much heavier. So the ZV-1 is far more compact and far lighter. And even though it's similar, I'll add this as a separate advantage because the ZV-1 is pocketable. The lens retracts. You can literally stick it in your pocket and go anywhere. And that is fantastic. To have a high quality camera that you can take around in your pocket, that's great. You cannot do that with the ZV-E10. There's an easier time-lapse function on the ZV-1. So if you like taking a lot of time lapses, the ZV-1 will get you there easier. It also has a faster burst rate in photo mode. It can do 24 frames per second as opposed to 11 frames per second that the ZV-E10 has. So that's great if you have fast moving action, to take that 24 frames per second. That's actually really good. And now let's move on to the advantages that the ZV-E10 has over the ZV-1. And the big one is the sensor. The sensor is far bigger. The sensor is an APS-C style sensor compared to the 1-inch sensor of the ZV-1, and that will give you many benefits, such as more accurate colors, better dynamic range, better in low light situations, all because it has a larger sensor, which is also 24 megapixels compared to the ZV-1's 20 megapixel sensor. So it will give you better photos, better ability to crop in on the photos, better images in general coming out of the larger sensor. And of course, it has interchangeable lenses, which gives you many options. As a photographer and a videographer, you can get much blurrier backgrounds with these interchangeable lenses. You can get very expensive lenses that will give you very, very excellent images on that nice 24 megapixel sensor. And that's the thing I was going to talk about with the aperture at the beginning with the ZV-1. Even though the ZV-1 says it's a 1.8 to a 2.8, that is really just the amount of light that it will let in. The 1.8 to 2.8 is in regard to light, but in regard to depth of field, for a full frame equivalent, you have to times it by 2.70. So if you times it by 2.7, you will find out that the actual depth of field, the amount of blurry background, will be equivalent to a full frame f4 to about an f7. Now that is a far less blurrier background than you will be able to get on the APS-C. Like for instance, there is a Sigma 16mm 1.4 on the APS-C. Now APS-C, you have to times it as well to get to the full frame equivalence depth of field and field of view. However, it is only a 1.5 times. Sorry about the math. That Sigma 16mm 1.4, if you times that by 1.5, you get roughly an f2 in terms of depth of field for a full frame equivalent. And here, I'll show you out in my backyard. Now here's the ZV-1. If you have it at 24 millimeters, you can get roughly an f4 amount of depth of field, and that is not bad, but the truth is, as soon as you touch the toggle for zoom, you pretty much go straight to the 2.8, which again, times 2.7 gives you an f7 in terms of depth of field. And as you can see, there is not that much separation from the background. Now, if you switch it over here to what the ZV-E10 can do, this is the ZV-E10 if I had the Sigma 1.4 millimeter lens on, and as you can see, it is far blurrier. So I noticed there was a lot of misinformation about that on the old YouTubes. A lot of people were very happy that it was a 1.8 to 2.8 aperture on the ZV-1, but they didn't realize that doesn't really apply to depth of field because you have to times it by 2.7. Now, of course, buying these nice lenses is going to cost you a lot of money, usually more money for the lens than for the ZV-E10, so bear that in mind. The ZV-E10 has a much longer battery life, 440 shots for pictures and 80 minutes of continuous video versus 260 shots on the ZV-1 or 45 minutes of video. And another big advantage the ZV-E10 has is the headphone jack. You can monitor your audio straight from the camera. Can't do that with the ZV-1. Now the price is a bit of a wash in my opinion because the ZV-1 is selling right now on B&H as of August 5th. 2021, it's selling for $748, and the ZV-E10 with the kit lens is selling for $799. But I think the price comparison is a bit misleading because you're not just going to buy the ZV-E10 and leave it at the kit lens. You're going to upgrade your lenses. Well, you should upgrade your lenses to get nicer lenses, to get better images and video, and those lenses are going to cost a lot of money. So the ZV-1, that's the all-in price. You're not going to spend any more money on this camera, but when it comes to the ZV-E10, wish they had different names, then you're going to spend a lot more money, but you're going to have a lot of different lenses and a lot of different options. So the question is, who are these cameras for? Well, I tell you, I think the ZV-1 is a much better camera if you're going to do traditional type vlogging. For instance, I have a buddy who is the editor for a YouTube channel called Couch Mom Club. And if you're a mom out there, or you know any moms, tell them to go subscribe to that channel. They're gonna love it. But this guy, he's also the husband of the couch mom, and he gives her a camera sometimes and says, go out and film a vlog, and then I'll splice it together and we'll put up a nice little vlog. And the ZV-1 would work great for that because it has better stability with less crop. It's got those ND filters, so when she's out in the sunshine, it will help. It has just everything you need in one compact system. She won't have to change lenses. She just has the one lens attached to the camera. It's an all-in-one setup, and it's good to go. And also, if you're a big traveler, you want to go out with the smallest rig possible, but you still want to get really good images and really good video, then the ZV-1 is going to fit the bill. And don't get me wrong, you can get depth of field. You can get a separation from the background. It's just, it takes a little more work. You want to have more space behind you. It has much less rolling shutter. It is much lighter. You can stick it in your pocket. It's good to go. So if that appeals to you, that is the camera to get. Now the ZV-E10, I think, is a camera that is much more for someone like me. I am primarily a video shooter. I have a lot of cameras. I usually set up multiple angles, and I will want different lenses, different focal lengths for different purposes. I will want the blurriest background that I can get. I will want longer runtime on my videos. I will want the best image I can get out of my camera sensor. And that's why the ZV-E10, I think, is a very good camera for people who want to do more. If you want to grow with the Sony camera system, and you want to make things like documentaries or short films or even feature films, then the ZV-E10 is the way to go. And of course, another big reason to buy the ZV-E10 is if you already have Sony cameras or you plan to get Sony interchangeable lens cameras in the future, the E-mount, all the lenses will fit all of the E-mount cameras. Even full-frame lenses will fit the APS-C size lenses because the E-mount is the same no matter what. So I think that they are both great cameras that you can get amazing photo and video out of. You just have to realize what is the purpose of the camera for you, and then you can make your decision. I hope this helped. I don't know if it did, but I'm glad you watched anyway. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you have any more questions, leave them down below. We'll see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. Sparkling water's a little dirty today.